If you think everything that's going to change already has, it hasn't. Monday, nothing happens. Just kidding. Just because there are no aspects going exact on a particular day does not mean that nothing happens. So the moon is applying on Monday. It will go exact on Tuesday to a trine with Venus. So the moon in Virgo applying to a trine with Venus in Taurus. Actually, just kidding. The moon conjoins the south node on Monday around 8:45 p.m. Pacific. So Monday could be a combination of things like loss and turning away from stuff, or like the energy dropping out of things, feeling fatigued or like drained is a better word. But if you stay up late on Monday, which is not necessary, and you've gotten past the moon south node conjunction, you might find something nice in the world, the nicer things in life, with the moon applying to a trine with Venus. And Monday night could also be surprising in some ways. It might come into being Monday night through the first part of Tuesday. The moon is also applying to a trine with Uranus because the Venus-Uranus conjunction is also this week. So anything having to do with Venus. Uranus is also involved, so look out for the element of surprise. And Venus trining Uranus isn't all that unusual, but Venus is dignified, and the moon trining Venus and trining Uranus. But the moon is activator of the zodiac, so the Venus-Uranus conjunction happening later in the week, this is activating it, and it's kind of strange. There is an unusual quality because Venus is about to move into Gemini, and so is Uranus. And that's a big deal. Uranus will be in Gemini for the rest of the summer, and then for a moment in the fall, Uranus will move back into Taurus temporarily. So this is like the trial run. Uranus in Gemini, a brave new world. So Venus-Uranus happens on Friday. We're going to see that activated partially on Monday and Tuesday. The second half of Tuesday, the moon enters Libra, and we're now concerned with the future in a different way. The moon is opposing Saturn, opposing Neptune, and trining Pluto. So you're talking to your AI companion who's your best friend now because you can tell them anything and they always give you the right answer. And you're developing a very deep connection with them whilst all the data is being hoovered up and loaded into a government repository of some kind or a corporate one. And at some point that will affect what school your kid gets into in 20 years. Except school is not going to be a thing in the way that we know it now. It's going to be these like mobile, nomadic, like living and learning in the world with an AI companion of their own. Late night on Tuesday, the moon in Libra is applying to a square with Jupiter in Cancer. So that seems nice. There's something uplifting after the moon-Saturn opposition. Maybe something a little uplifting about Tuesday night. And Tuesday night could also be somewhat chatty because the moon is applying to a sextile with Mercury in Leo. So there's something really fun about Tuesday night. And then Wednesday and Thursday are kind of this weird no man's land. They're like the same day, same extended day. And after around noon on Wednesday, the moon is void, so there's like nothing happening until the moon moves into Scorpio around 2 a.m. early Friday morning. And then Friday is really busy. So yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday are the same day. And Thursday you might want to be prepared for a surprise of some kind. Although the moon is void, if you look back to Monday, Monday activated the Venus-Uranus conjunction. You might find something about Monday and Tuesday carrying over to the liminal space between Thursday and Friday because Venus and Uranus can join each other exactly around 5 a.m. Pacific time. So Venus-Uranus could have something to do with like sudden attraction or something sudden happening with a partnership, or a sudden good time, or maybe a good time, what was supposed to be a good time, suddenly changes, or some sort of experimental art situation, aesthetic experiments. Yeah, so Venus, Uranus. This week sort of leads us into a wild ride. Technically, Uranus, we talk about Uranus entering Gemini next week, but really it enters Gemini in the wee hours in between Sunday and Monday of next week. So it is coming. And right after Venus conjoins Uranus, Venus moves into Gemini. So we're being led in to a wild ride immediately. Friday's a lot. Wednesday and Thursday are your teacher prep days for Friday. Stuff about Friday could easily come and start bothering you on Wednesday and Thursday. Like you might be able to see what's coming or not. A part of it is that you won't be, because that's Uranus. The moon also squares Pluto. So there's something there's like a low subsonic rumble to Friday morning. And also, you get a nice part of the day in the beginning of the day on Friday, like into midday, into afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in, where the moon is trining Jupiter. So that's the moon in Scorpio, trining Jupiter in Cancer. So at least this moon in Scorpio has some help now for the next year with Jupiter in Cancer. It kind of makes the Jupiter in Cancer-ness of everything a little bit deflated or something, because it's ruled by the moon and the moon is in its sign of detriment. However, not the worst Scorpio moon you could have. I find it not insignificant that this weird stuff is happening with Venus. And Neptune is stationing on Friday. So you're going to see weird ways to be hoisted by your own petard. I used that before. I like that for Neptune in Aries a lot. So watch out for weird stuff that is not quite right. That seems like romantic or too good to be true. That's a Venus Neptune signature, and Venus and Neptune aren't really contacting each other, although that's not true, actually. Of course, that isn't true. Venus does sextile Neptune immediately upon entering Gemini. It happens at the end of the week. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on with Venus, like outer planet, abducted by the fairies, strange things. Venus in Taurus is very real. Venus, Uranus in Taurus is very disruptive of status quo. Venus in Gemini, sextiling Neptune in Aries, sounds really fun. It sounds like a good idea. It might not be. Or it might be something that would normally be mundane or somewhat pleasant, has these rose-tinted glasses, and it is really romantic and a wonderful time. It could go either way. Because Neptune is delusion and deception, in addition to Venus, Neptune connections having a very romantic sensibility, and Neptune on its own does pertain to aesthetic sensibility. So Venus contacts Neptune while, during the same span of days that Neptune is stationing retrograde. The outer planets stationing retrograde are more like tides, so when they station, it emphasizes the significations of that planet. And Neptune will be retrograde until December 8th, so we'll see another peak, and we will be able to look back and see a story or a retracing of steps or a reviewing of something or something kind of held up, Neptune retrograde is not going to be like a Mercury retrograde or anything. It's just a big tide of like everything is still moving in a direction. It's nonlinear. And Neptune itself is very nonlinear. Also, Neptune is stationing retrograde. Like this was Neptune in Aries, so something might have dropped, become like a crazy fight on March 29th, March 30th, March 30th. So you might have noticed that like something shifted and launched you into a whole new reality that's like you're like, where am I? It might be starting to pull back, and Neptune is going to move back into Pisces for a short time. So just know that this is a pulling back of the reins. It's not a total reversal. So you get a minute to catch your breath for the next few months. And then when Neptune moves back into Aries, you'll get to confront this new reality. You will have had some like extra preparation. And Neptune moves back into Aries January 26th. So Neptune will move into Pisces in the fall again. And then by January 26th, you will have had this like, we've had this disorienting time in the spring, and then it pulls back and we can like get our bearings a little bit, but be prepared to like launch back into Bizarro World, the new version of Bizarro World, because it's always Bizarro World somewhere. That would be if I had my outer space cantina, it would say that. So Friday, all of that comes to a head, but it's technically, it's all like official. We make it official on Friday, but it was activated earlier in the week, Monday and Tuesday, and it'll be activated again on Sunday. So the rest of Friday is just the moon squaring Mercury, the moon in Scorpio squaring Mercury in Leo. So we'll having a problem with secrecy versus things being out in the open, exposure, visibility, and things being covert. And the moon sextiles Mars, so get some help from the boss. Mars is closing in on, it's not really that close right now, but Mars is with the South Node, so there's a little bit of like if the moon needs some help, maybe Mars is like a little bit overwhelmed with just like all the details and then also being totally over it. Saturday is another slight no man's land. All that's happening is the moon trining the sun. So one hand knowing what the other hand is doing. And the only other lunar aspect that the moon is headed towards, is an opposition with Uranus. And that doesn't happen until Sunday afternoon. So Saturday is a strange realm. And this is when Venus sextiles Neptune and also sextiles Saturn. So there might be some sort of like romantic situation regarding things that like the future and the past, things having to do with like long-term commitment. Things seem really possibly warm and fuzzy and like lively and chatty, but just be careful with whatever that is, because Neptune adds this element of romance, but it also like blurs things, and especially Venus Neptune really gives it the rose-tinted glasses. So helpful for staying positive. That's nice if Saturn is going to be in Aries right now. Neptune and Venus are softening it a little bit, but just keep an eye on how that's being softened and understand what is sustainable, unsustainable about it. It's showing you possibilities that could be good. However, this transit, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, is not always going to be touched by Venus. And I think we've seen already the ways that it is not touched by Venus. So this is temporary, Venus passing through, making it a little better. It'll maybe like give you an experience to sip from later, but it's not this Venus Saturn stuff. Any Venus Saturn contact happening for the next while is going to be it's going to have a red flag. It's Aries, it's Saturn in Aries, so it has a red flag. The like long-termness of it. So the Venus Saturn and Venus Neptune sextile technically go exact on Sunday morning, but you might feel them Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then so Sunday, most of Sunday is the moon applying to an opposition with Uranus. So more activation of this Venus-Uranus stuff and more the element of surprise. Whatever your plans were on Sunday, maybe they change. And then on Sunday, we get another shift in tone with the moon entering Sagittarius. So now the moon is about to sextile Pluto. We're fully, truly stepping into the future because something very big is about to happen. And it's fun and interesting that the moon-Uranus high five opposition happened in the old signs from the olden times of the past 7 years. Uranus in Taurus and the moon in Scorpio. Now the moon moves into Sagittarius and activates the Saturn-Neptune Venus situation, trines Neptune, trines Saturn, opposes Venus. So we're seeing whatever that Venus, Uranus, and Venus, Saturn, and Neptune stuff is, the moon is activating it right now on like the late half of Sunday, and then sextiles Pluto. So moon in Sag, sextiling Pluto in Aquarius is, I keep calling it the Neuralink aspect. This is like the becoming one with your tools in a way that like is maybe a little disturbing. And at 12:47 a.m., I'll talk about it next week. Uranus enters Gemini. And that's temporary. Uranus will move back into Taurus in the fall for a moment. So it's the same thing with Saturn and Neptune. We're getting this preview of the future that's rolling out. But we're not fully entrenched in it yet, and we get a chance to like go back to the before time for a few minutes to catch our breath this fall. But that's a really big deal, and that's really exciting. And late night on Sunday is just the moon applying to a trine with Mercury in Leo. And Mercury is the ruler of Uranus and Gemini. So Uranus is going to move into Gemini. Mercury gets a promotion and suddenly is in control of a lot. And then the moon is applying to Mercury. So something is going to be activated immediately. And it might be like structural because it's not quite touching Uranus yet. But there's something that shifts about how things are organized. Maybe some new cabinet members are appointed by Mercury because he might need some help managing an outer planet. I think of a planetary, like a traditional planet gets an outer planet in its one of its signs, then it gets a promotion. It has a lot more responsibilities. It's responsible for a lot, like, more generational, long-term thinking. And Mercury, another thing that happens is Mercury moves quick. So right now we're going to have, this applies to Jupiter in Cancer too. Jupiter exalts in Cancer. Another thing about that, Jupiter in Cancer, is that the moon moves quick. The moon is always changing. So Jupiter in Cancer is always subject to like whatever the moon is doing. So like, okay, we need to invest in this and make sure this is okay. We need to make sure this is okay. And that makes sense to me in terms of how Jupiter could be exalted, because it's like Jupiter is constantly just like, we got to make the whole thing better. Like the lived reality that's being activated, let's make that better all the time. because the moon is Jupiter's boss. And so the same thing goes for Uranus and Gemini, is likely to be feel quite all over the place, as opposed to Uranus and Taurus, which like just wants to dig in the heels and stay there until the foundation cracks or something ruptures. Uranus and Gemini is going to be so all over the place. You won't even know. I think it might be disorienting at times, especially during Mercury retrogrades. But Mercury moves quick, so we have. What's interesting is that Mercury will be in Leo for most of the time that Uranus does this trial run, or a lot of it. Not most, but a lot of it. Half the time. So not most of the time at all. But Mercury is beginning this extended trip through Leo while it has this new planet to deal with. So everybody's on kind of training wheels and getting used to their new roles in life that are the future. Remember, your Wi-Fi is a camera that can see through walls. And also take care of each other, even though, or because you're being surveilled. I'm trying to think of a way to make that more empowering. Remember that always being watched isn't the only reason to activate your nobility.